Not seeking Buddha, not seeking Dharma, not seeking Sangha. This is the way to realize who you are. Anything else misses that this very mind is Buddha. This very life, just as it is, contains all that you need. Anything else is just buying moonlight at midnight or raindrops in a storm. Don't be fooled. Sail on and realize the shoreless island that is Zen. My Teisho today is on case 11 of the Blue Cliff Record, and as always I will begin with Master Ango's introduction to the case. The Buddha's supreme power is wholly within his grasp. All the souls and all the spirits of heaven and earth are under his command. Even his casual words and sayings amaze the masses and arouse the crowds. His every gesture and action removes the sufferer's chains and knocks off their cangs. If a transcendent man appears, the Buddha meets him with the transcendent principle. Who can ever be so wonderful? If you want to understand the secret, see the following. And the main case. Obaku addressed the assembly and said, "You are all gobblers of dregs. If you go on studying Zen like that, you will never finish it. Do you know that in all the land of Tang, there is no Zen teacher?" Then a monk came forward and said, "But surely there are those who teach disciples and preside over assemblies. What about that?" Obaku said, "I do not say that there is no Zen, but that there is no Zen teacher." And finally, Secho's verse on the case. Commanding his way of teaching, but he made it no point of merit. Seated majestically over the whole land, he distinguished the dragon from the snake. Emperor Taichu once encountered him, and thrice fell into his clutches. So Obaku was a very great master in the Tang Dynasty. We don't know his dates for sure. It appears that he died in or around the year 850, so kind of right in the middle of the Tang Dynasty in China. He was the Dharma heir of Hyakcho, and he transmitted the Dharma to 13 of his disciples, among whom was the illustrious Master Rinzai, whose lineage has carried on down to today. Obaku was apparently very tall. I think Master Ango said he was 7 feet tall, which is a little hard to believe, but okay, tall. And he had a boss on his forehead, some kind of a callus that looked a bit like a pearl. And people have often theorized that this was the result of the many thousands of prostrations that he made. There's a story I'll read you about his bowing practice because I think it has some relevance to the case before us. It's said that Obaku was prostrating before a Buddha on the altar. At that time, the future Emperor Sensu was serving incognito in the temple as a novice monk. Seeing Obaku's repeated prostrations, he asked, "It is said, do not seek it in the Buddha, do not seek it in the Dharma, do not seek it in the Sangha. Elder, what are you seeking by prostrating?" Obaku replied, "Not seeking Buddha, not seeking Dharma, not seeking Sangha. Now, this business of not seeking Zen is at the heart of today's koan, in which Obaku tells his monks that they are eating the grain mash. They are not really enjoying the liquor of Zen, the wine of Zen. They're eating the dregs, which are pretty awful. I know this firsthand because when I was living in China, I visited a distillery where they were fermenting sorghum and making a very, very powerful grain alcohol. It smells terrible, that mash. I would presume it would taste pretty bad too. But Obaku is telling his monks that they're all gobblers of dregs, eating brewer's grain, and ups the ante by telling them there are no teachers of Zen anywhere in the entire empire of the Tang Dynasty, an empire that had thousands of temples, many thousands of monks, hundreds of very great Zen masters. But he's nevertheless telling his monks that they don't have it and they're not getting it because they're looking for it in the wrong place. And this is confusing to them, and this is why this monk steps forward and says, but surely there are those who teach disciples and preside over assemblies. What about that? But Obaku just says, I do not say that there is no Zen, but that there is no Zen teacher. Oh, if that's true, what are we all doing? You know, who or what are we following if there are no Zen teachers? What is this channel for? What do you think I'm doing? What are you watching if it's not Zen? Are we all just a bunch of inane idiots running around doing senseless things? See, the problem is that we go looking for Zen. We look for it outside of ourselves. There are lots of stories and koans about this. I'm reminded of, I think it's the third case in the Mumonkan, about one of Obaku's contemporaries, Gutei. And it said that no matter what Gutei was asked, he always answered by raising a finger. It doesn't really say which finger, but that was his answer. It didn't matter what the question was. Whatever it was, this was the answer he gave. And then one day, a visitor comes to the temple to see him, and he's greeted by an attendant, a boy. And the visitor asks this boy, what does your master teach? And the boy, thinking he was very clever, just raised his finger. Well, when Gutei heard about this, he came after the boy with a knife and cut the finger off. And the boy cried and ran away. Gutei called after him, and when the boy turned around, Gutei raised his finger. And the boy was suddenly deeply enlightened. You know, what happened in that case? What's the difference between the boy's finger and Gutei's finger? Well, the difference is that the boy was imitating Gutei. He didn't understand Gutei's one-finger Zen at all. But he kind of thought that must be Zen because that's what the teacher does. Now, I rather doubt that Gutei literally cut off this boy's finger, but that's not the point. The point is that Gutei had to take away this boy's one-finger Zen because it was phony. It wasn't real. Kind of a burden that this boy was carrying around kind of unknowingly. And Gutei took it away. It's okay, because this boy had an extra finger, so it's okay to cut one off. He had 11 fingers. And this is what Zen teachers do. They take things away. They rob you. They're thieves. If you invite one into your home, they'll steal your house. So, fair warning. But you know, it's just so natural for us to become attached to what our teachers say and do. I mean, I really have some sympathy for that. Because, after all, it appears that they have something that we don't have, and we want it. So we go to the teacher, and we ask for help. Help us. The problem, though, is that as soon as we do that, we're looking for Zen outside of ourselves. And we're missing the central fact, which is that this mind, this very mind, is Buddha. Every teacher, from Bodhidharma on down to today, says this in one way or another. This mind is Buddha. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. It's all-pervading. And yet we go looking for it, as if it were somewhere external to our own lives. We have this intuition that there is such a thing as Zen. We have this intuition that there is such a thing as awakening. And we do precisely because we have intrinsic Buddha nature. Precisely because this very mind is Buddha. If you didn't have that, you would never have started practicing Zen to begin with. You wouldn't have sought out a teacher to begin with. You wouldn't have sought out the teaching to begin with. But you do so because of this intrinsic Buddha wisdom. Everyone's birthright. And we go looking, then. We go looking, and we try to get Zen from a book. We try to get it from a video. Try to get it from Teisho. Any way we can. And yet, precisely because we've gone seeking it, we just end up with a pocket full of yesterdays, the leftovers of someone else's awakening, the dregs, an extra finger. In his commentary on this case, Seikido Roshi says, it is an iron rule that Zen cannot be taught. It's an inviolable law. No one teaches Zen. It's sometimes said that at the end of his life, the Buddha said, for 49 years, I did not preach a single word. What? How can that be? He was the Buddha. Muman says he was a great chatterbox. He talked all the time. His lips were flapping night and day. And he never preached a single word in half a century? All the great Tang masters, never taught anything. Today's teachers don't teach Zen. I don't teach Zen. And I say this even though just 2 weeks ago, I published an informal talk about getting a teacher and working with a teacher. And I said explicitly, you need to have a teacher. Am I wrong? Because Obaku says there are no teachers of Zen? Is Obaku wrong? What's going on here? You know, sometimes I think about this teaching business as a matter of sailing around an island. It's well, from the perspective of a new Zen student, Zen is like this beautiful, exotic island paradise out in the middle of a vast ocean. And we have no idea where it is. We just know it's out there somewhere. And we want to go to it. So we go to a teacher. And we get some navigational guidance. And after a time, we start to make out the dim outlines of this beautiful island on the horizon. And as our boat gets closer and closer to the island, we start to sail around it and get closer and closer to the shore. But at some point, the boat cannot get any closer. The boat cannot go onto the land. So if you want to have the experience yourself of being on the island, you're going to have to jump off the ship and swim to the shore. Now, it's not so easy to do. And it's not easy because when people come up to the edge, they look over the lifelines of their boat and they look down into that dark water, into this black void, into nothingness, and they panic. If it's not a universal experience, it's at least very common that this panic ensues. Some people back away from the brink then, and if they don't continue to work closely with their teacher, they may never leap off the edge. They may just imagine that gradually, little by little, they're just going to somehow get to the island. But it doesn't happen, because it can't happen that way. It requires a leap. And Obaku knew this. And he also knew that people were fearful of that leap because it seems very much like you're going to wink out of existence if you jump off. That's how it feels. It literally feels like you might die. Of course, you won't die, but it feels like it. It really does. I'm not exaggerating about this. But leap you must if you want to have the experience of being on the island yourself. And so Obaku told his monks, if you have to do this leap, the only way you can do it is suddenly and with all the energy of a knife thrust. It's the only way. In other words, you have to be willing to do anything. In some sense, you have to be willing to give up your life and make that that final leap into the abyss. And once you do, you discover that you never needed this boat. Because you had everything to begin with. You discover that this beautiful Zen island that you so longed for is not an island at all. It is not surrounded by an ocean. It's not surrounded by anything. It extends infinitely in all directions. There was never any need to go anywhere. It's all so completely clear, completely obvious. Just your life, just as it is. All that teaching, what was it? Just selling sunlight on a clear day. Thank you for listening.